good morning. I'm gonna have to talk loud. We got a concrete pump truck out here. Sometimes you gotta catch things when you can, and I know we're going through our series, and I came across a concrete truck and a pump truck getting ready to pour a foundation. So we've already talked about the infrastructure under the rough-in plumbing, rough-in power. Everything's inspected by the county. They're ready to pour some concrete. All right, guys, they're getting the pump truck set up right now. You got the guys out there, they're gonna be working the concrete. Then you got a gentleman you'll see here in a minute, he's gonna be pumping it through this truck. Used to be in the old days, we take cement mixers and drive them all over the lot, but they don't do that anymore. The cement mixers, they'll have 4 or 5 or whatever they need coming through, dumping their concrete into this hopper, which we'll see here in just a minute. And then the operator of the pump truck will then take it out and work it throughout the foundation. And this gentleman here, he's the cement truck operator. All right, there we go. We're coming from the cement truck into the hopper. And I was just talking to Tim, the operator. This is 3,000 pounds per square inch concrete. And I'll explain that to you in just a moment. Is this fiber reinforced?
No fiber this time.
No fiber this time. Okay, so they're using the metal, the reinforcing metal on the under the foundation, or in the foundation. So this is 3,000 pound concrete being pumped by that gentleman right up there. He's got a cool control box he's playing with. He's smart. He's under the umbrella. Smart man. So you can see what they've done here. And I got to stay off their site and everything. But what they've done here, as you can see, is all of the plumbing and electrical infrastructure is underneath that moisture barrier, that plastic. And then they put the metal, they raise the metal up, and that's to help give the concrete strength, and the little stands that it's on, that keeps it up off of the plastic so that the concrete can wrap all the way around and giving the entire operation here strength, okay? And also you'll notice that there's rebar, that metal bars that are down in there. That's called rebar, and this is your footer. This is your outside footer. This is where the walls, the exterior walls, are going to set on to give and have something stable for the walls. And depending on the makeup of the house, sometimes they'll have footers throughout the house as well. Depends on the situation and what the house is all about. You're fine. And what these guys, there you go, I like this. Nice. And what they're doing now is they're going to start with the footers, and they're going to pour it deep. They'll start there, and they'll just kind of work around and work their way out. It's very systematic what they do. And these guys will be working it. They'll be getting the air out of it, stamping it out, and making sure it stays inside the form boards, because it'll tend to want to push out because concrete's heavy. So let me get you around this side so you guys can see. So pretty sloppy work too. That's why they wear boots, because it'll splatter on you something fierce. I've gotten a lot of concrete on me over the years. So that footer is going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 to 12 inches deep. And then of course the foundation will be about 4 to 5 inches probably. Okay. All right, you can see the guys starting to work it, making sure that it's going in and around all the reinforcement wire, making sure it's tamped down very well. You'll see them, sometimes they'll get out what they call an aerator or unaerator. It's like a mixer, and they'll get all the air out, and it helps the concrete settle down as well. So sometimes they'll do that depending on what they need. I don't see one sitting out here right now. That doesn't mean they won't do it and they don't have it. But you can see they're going around the footer. They'll get all that poured, and then they'll start working their way to the front. As they wait, the first cement truck pulled away, they're waiting for the second one to get here. And this gentleman, he's starting to trowel the edges. He's starting to trowel the edges, and what they'll do is they'll keep working it while the cement's wet, so that they can make sure everything stays smooth and everything, because you don't want it to set all rough and everything. So they'll just keep working that. It's an ongoing process as they pour this entire foundation. Well, while we got a little lull in the action, the first truck left, the first cement truck left. They're waiting for the second so they can get back to work. Usually they got them lined up and ready to go, so I'm not sure. It's a little slow this morning. But when we talked about the thickness of the concrete pad, of the foundation, sometimes, usually 4 to 5 inches, sometimes up to 6, depending on, you can see the deviations in the dirt once it's packed down. And so then the concrete itself pushes it down as well, because concrete is heavy. So you could very well have areas that are up to 6 inches thick, depending on what's going on and where it's setting and all this other stuff. So, and all that water you see there, all that'll be pushed out, because what happens is they water as they work the concrete, as it starts setting and they're troweling and they're moving it around and doing all of that cool stuff, it actually, what they call the cream starts rising to the top. And hopefully we're here long enough for us to start seeing that, and then they'll start smoothing it down and smoothing it down. Then water comes up until the concrete completely sets, and then they'll pull the form boards off. They'll grind it with a big grinder to make sure it's nice and smooth, no high spots, low spots, things like that. So it's quite the process, and they'll just keep the whole process going throughout the pour job. Okay, so hopefully we get a concrete truck back here soon. A little side note for the construction world. In my opinion, the three hardest working disciplines on a job site, guys and girls, but the three hardest working disciplines is concrete guys, framers, and roofers. Those three disciplines work outside with no cover over them. And I gotta be honest with you, I totally respect what they do. It is hard work, and so my hat's off to these guys, that's for sure. You see what he's doing over there now? He's whacking with his hammer on the side of that form board because he's trying to make sure that concrete settles down in there. And they'll do that around a lot of it just to make sure it settles down. They'll jump and trowel it up so it's stacked up. It already started settling by itself, but he's making sure that it stays settled down so that when they either trowel it or they do the mixer deal, so he's using his trowel on it now to kind of smooth it and shape it and do all that stuff that they do. Again, this is a whole ongoing. They'll repeat the process multiple times throughout the pour. All right, we got a little downtime. They're waiting for another concrete truck to get here, but I wanted to show you something else while we're looking, while we're waiting. You know, we've got the reinforcement wire that is basically ends up inside the concrete. We have the rebar, the metal rebar that runs along the entire footer. But we also have a ground rod, which is this right here. That is actually part of the rebar that is in the footer. There's one here in the garage and one on the far side, usually in the front bedroom of a house. They'll usually have two in a house. And what this ground bar is your entire electrical service in your garage will be connected to this, will be grounded to this, so that it truly grounds. If there's some sort of electrical issue, overload on the circuit, power surge, what have you, it will ground to the rebar that's in this concrete, which touches the ground essentially. So that's why they call it grounding the house. That's a ground bar. And this will be inspected by the county. All of this will be inspected by the county. All right, gang, since they're still pouring that other foundation and it's going to be quite a long time, I thought I would come over and show you kind of what a finished foundation looks like. Different house, but just a different stage of production. These guys are taking care of smoothing things, letting the moisture rise to the top. They're troweling. They pulled the form boards. He's cleaning up the edge there. And so later this afternoon, they will bring in a grinder, basically a sander, if you will. Looks like a big giant fan. Once this sets a little bit, the moisture keeps coming. Moisture keeps rising up out of the concrete itself, and they'll grind the whole top of this to make sure it's nice and smooth. It looks like we still have our garage to pour over there as well. And these guys over on this side are removing the dirt back away from them so they can pull those form boards. It doesn't take them long. They'll pull the form boards pretty quick because they really wanted to get away from the concrete. So the concrete's still wet. So like the other gentleman was doing over there, they smooth it so that they do a good job smoothing it. If it gets hard, then pretty much all bets are off. All right, as they continue to pour, you know, there's an old adage that says the cream rises to the top. But you see all the moisture that's in the concrete, and what they're doing is not only are they tamping it down as they go along, and they'll continue this process throughout the whole field of the foundation here, but they're also dragging that big giant, and that's just a big giant piece of wood. They have metal ones. That one, this one happens to be, it looks like, no, it's a piece of aluminum. That is a metal one, piece of aluminum. But anyway, they drag it across and start getting that level. It's a multi-step process. They'll fill in gaps, they'll push stuff, they'll pull some away. Just depends on what they see. These guys are experienced. They know what they're looking for. And all that moisture will start rising as they start tamping and troweling and all that. All right, and they'll do this throughout the whole process. All right, before we go look at the foundation that's next door that they've already finished, we're gonna look at this little machine here. And what this does, it's a gas-powered machine. It's got little blades up underneath there, and what it does, it sands the concrete, if you will. And they'll spritz it with water, spritz the concrete with water, almost like a wet sand, like you're doing tile work or anything like that, or wet sanding a car body. But that's what this is doing. If you look down in here, you'll see those little fan blades, and that's what's grinding the concrete. So that'll be the very last thing to do. It'll be all finished up and be perfect. All right, gang, this is a finished foundation. Again, these are all different homes, same subdivision, different homes, but different stages of concrete. So it's all the same no matter which home it is. It doesn't really matter. It's all the same scenario. So you can see it's all been done. It's all been ground down with that sander. It's all ready to go for the framing guys. And they'll let this sit here for a little while, a few days before the framing package gets here and the framers start working on it. So let me point out a couple things that we talked about early on. Is that you see the slope in the garage, okay? It's deeper there than it is here. It's got a, what, 2 inches, maybe a couple inches of slope there, maybe 2.5. That's for water runoff. So if you get water in the garage, rainwater coming in, what have you, it goes away from the house, okay? And also where your garage door sets, you notice it sets lower. Let me step out here. It sets lower than the concrete and then the garage floor, so that the door sets down. If water drives and hits the bottom of that rubber seal in the garage door, it's slowed down, it stops it. If it does get in, it's not very much, and so on. So that's why they do that. So if we walk back towards the center of the concrete, you'll see a lot of the things we talked about when we talked about roughing in the concrete with all of our under slab plumbing and electric and all the other stuff that you now see stubbed out. So all your disciplines will come in and they can tap into those places per plan and build you a great house. If you come back in here, the same thing with this is probably going to be I think I know what plan is, maybe a Miramar, but you see the same thing here with the sliding glass doors where they set down in this recessed area so that if water does drive in there, it doesn't get into the house. And then of course your pad out here is lower and it flows away from the house. It runs deep just like the garage. So there's a finished piece of concrete ready for some framing. All right, gang, that was Concrete 101, pouring a foundation. We appreciate you coming along. This video might have been a little longer than most. I do appreciate you hanging in there. Drop me a comment below. Tell me what you think. Ask a question, whatever it might be. A little bug there. So we do appreciate you. Next stop is framing. We'll find a house that's getting ready to be framed and all that sort of thing, and we'll check that out. So anyway, we appreciate you guys. Have a fantastic day.